Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Yesterday, they gave us an update for the 4th edition. So we've got the big FAQ that we've been waiting for. Now, really, they stealth updated everything. It was kind of odd. They pushed an update to the app. They gave us some updated PDFs, but no news story, no explanation about what's going on. So kind of an interesting way to do it. We also had to kind of scroll through and find out what was updated until they updated this PDF for us. So not a whole lot changed, to be honest. For Seraphon, almost nothing changed. But let's take a look at it and see how it affects Seraphon. This should be a fairly quick video. Battle profiles. They didn't change any points on anybody. So it looks like we're going to be stuck in the age of Nighthaunt and Trolls for a little while. Nighthaunt does board control better than we do. Trolls do combat better than we do. So I think we'll see them at the top of the heap for quite some time. So what changed for us? We look at this page. We have an asterisk next to the Slann. I'm sitting there studying it, trying to figure out what in the world they changed, and realize that it's just the base size. They had the base size wrong on the previous battle profile, so all they did was correct that. All right. That's all the changes on the battle profiles for Seraphon. They made a couple of the changes that are relevant for us. This one just real quickly. Some updates to the manifestations. Really, what the big ones are is Morbid Conjuration. The Suffocating Gravetide and Purple Sun can't move into combat. That just makes them a little bit harder to get their buffs off, but really just charge these endless spells and you'll still be doing good. So I think Morbid Conjuration is still probably the best manifestation lore to take because you have access to 4 spells and they're all pretty good. So I think you'll still see it around a whole lot. Aetherward Pendulum, it can now move into combat. Kind of readjusted the wording on it. It's still probably the easiest manifestation to avoid. I've tried it a couple times and it's never done any damage because it's very difficult to get this to actually hit units. So not a big deal. You'll still see Morbid Conjuration a lot. The one update we did have for Seraphon, we see the old update, Bastiladon with Solar Engine gets a skink keyword. Not a big deal. You're probably not playing a Bastiladon with Solar Engine anyway. That was the old update. The new thing they've added, Source Scarvetted on Aggradon, change Alpha Roar ability to Declare. Pick this unit and each friendly Aggradon Lancer unit wholly within 12 of it to be targets. Okay, same as before. Effect, add 1 to the attack characteristics of the target's companion weapons for the rest of the turn. In addition, place a rage token next to each target to a maximum of 3 per unit. So at first glance I thought, oh sweet, we get 2 extra attacks essentially. And then as I'm rereading the Aggradon Rage, I swear I've been doing this wrong the entire time for Rage. And maybe this is what everybody's doing. It seems like on, some of the Discords and stuff, it seems like a lot of people were doing this wrong also. But the Rage, you don't put it on there till the end of the turn, obviously. And that adds 1 for the attack's characteristics until the end of the next turn. That's all good. That's how I was doing it. But with Alpha Roar, I was putting a Rage token on it and giving it that 1 extra attack in the combat phase. Rules as written previously, that wouldn't have worked until the next turn because you don't proc this Primal Rage until the end of the turn. Obviously, that's how it's written, but I wasn't playing it that way. I was giving it the extra attack from Alpha Roar immediately when I was doing that. And I think that's what they intended it to be written as. And I think that's what this errata is doing. It's changing it to what they intended. Add 1 to the attack characteristics, and then add 1 rage token for the next turn. So you're not actually adding 2 attacks as it kind of reads quickly. You're adding 1 for the current turn that you're in, and you're adding 1 rage token, which will proc at the end of that turn. So I think all this is doing is getting us to where it was written as intended. Now it's actually written as it's supposed to be. So this isn't really increasing the output of Kroxagore. Really, all my calculations I was doing previously, I was assuming 1 rage from the Alpha Roar, And so this doesn't really change their outlook on how much damage they can do. Now, in practice, if I'm doing this correctly on the board now, they will get a little bit more damaging. But Aggradons are still good. They're still great. They have a ton of damage they can output when you get 6 Aggradons together and you get them buffed up. You get extra rend from Empowered Celestite or from the Honor Guard rules, then they can do a ton of damage. They are susceptible to debuffs, which I've been hit with quite a few debuffs on these guys when I try to play Aggradon heavy lists. -1 to hit to them is devastating. -1 to wound is really bad because there's not really a lot of ways to get +1 to wound in our army. You can do auto wounds on crits. That helps if you're debuffed, but Aggradons are susceptible to debuffs a lot more than, say, like Kroxigor. But so, not a whole lot of changes for us. Aggradons get a little bit better for one turn, and essentially just play as they were supposed to. So, not a whole lot of changes. All right, we could end the video there. I did, however, go to a tournament this last weekend, so I wanted to quickly hit on that since this is a short video, as is. FAQ didn't give us much to talk about. So let's talk about quickly my tournament last weekend. Here's what I was wanting to take. I was wanting to take a Shadow Strike Star Host and really go board control with this list. So I have 3 drops, 3 different heroes. I've got 4 casts in this list. I've got a Skink Starseer as... actually, I wasn't doing this as my general, but I've got a Skink Starseer here. 2-cast Wizard, has a fantastic War Scroll spell, and can give me an ability to get 5-up ward on my 2 big units of Kroxigor in his battalion. So I've got regular Kroxigor and Warspawn Kroxigor. Those Warspawn Kroxigor are going to be tag teaming with the Raptidon Chargers. So I really love that combination. It's just a fantastic combination. A lot of damage, a lot of wounds, and they will kill things. My next battalion, I was going to do Skink Star Priest with 2 Hunters of Huanche, one with Dart Pipes, one with Bolas, just because I needed the points. They both have good debuffs that you can apply to units. And then Skink Star Priest with 3 units of Skinks. And I've been playing these where it's just score battle tactics. These Skinks will be able to push out screens, and that way my Kroxigor can kind of pick the targets that they want to charge into on the next turn. So push up the board, drop Hunters as needed, debuff, score battle tactics. It's a very good list to score battle tactics with, and control the board and make sure nobody gets into my Kroxigor that I don't want them to. It also gives me a little bit of time, since Kroxigor is slower, to get up the board and get them into combat. So I like this list a lot. I've played it a couple times here. I need more practice with it, but I like it as a board control list. But what I did for this tournament is right at the last minute, I decided, you know what? I'm going to change my list. I'm going to do something different. That's always a good plan, right? So here's the list I actually took. Sunclaw Star Host. And same core there with my Skink Starseer, my Kroxigor, my Raptidons. And they performed fantastically. I absolutely love that core battalion right there. I take it a whole lot. What I flexed into, though, I was sitting here staring over at my Carnosaur on the shelf, and I said, you know what? Let's see how the Carnosaur does at a competitive tournament here. So I threw in the Scar Veteran on Carnosaur because that's the one I could fit in the list with the points. I gave it Incandescent Retrosis so that it's healing in both my turn and your turn, and then Being on the Stars so it's unrendable. I'm trying to make this thing as tough to kill as possible. I took 2 small units of Aggradons because I was able to, you can use those to kind of score objectives a little bit better than if one big unit. I don't have the proper stuff to buff it up. I can use those as a screen if I need to, but I'm putting these in my General's Regiment. I'm making them the Honor Guard so that my Scar Veteran on Carnosaur is even tougher to kill. If you're coming in to the Scar Veteran, you're going to be -1 attacks. He's unrendable, and he's going to heal. Theoretically, he should be difficult to kill. Unfortunately, in 2 out of the 3 games, he was killed quite easily even with those buffs. Failed experiment there. I think I'm going to go back to my board control list because it was a little bit of a disappointment. So, over the 3 games I played, I ended up doing Quetzal the Preserver every single time just because I wanted to keep the stuff alive. I didn't really have something I needed to go move fast with to Alpha Strike. I didn't really have a lot of companion weapons that I needed to attack with, so Quetzal the Preserver seemed like the smart choice. I also didn't have a Slann that was going to be casting a whole lot, so just my Starseer. So Quetzal the Preserver. I never once got the side quest for keeping an enemy unit wholly out of my territory, so I never once got that in this game. Once you tell the opponent what they need to do, it's just so easy for them to stop it. So let's see, my heroic trait, hit on that real quick, the Being of the Stars. It did help, but there's enough damage in this game that you're going to fail enough 4-up saves, and that damage just going to go straight through. No ward to speak of for him unless you're proccing it from the Starseer, and no damage reduction anymore. So let's see, my healing, I did take the Incandescent Retrosis there for my heals, and that did help when I needed it, but he died pretty fast. So game 1, I'm playing against Matt Taylor and his OBR, and he is playing Nagash and just a whole bunch of horses. So he takes just a ton of cavalry. They're very wounds efficient. They're good price, and they do quite a bit of damage. And so he can throw a ton of buffs on them from Nagash. And this game was really more about like who's going to commit first. You see, it's this game type is kind of an odd deployment. And I want to try to stay in my territory to make sure I keep my -1 to his rend. And he wants to stay near Nagash to make sure he keeps all his buffs up. So I run this direction to score a battle tactic. He comes down and answers this way. I'm basically trying to hold this objective with my Carnosaur and my Aggradons. These Krox are going to hold this middle objective. And then I can use these Kroxagore and Raptidons to pressure this side, was my plan. But based on the game flow, I had to push the initiative to score some battle tactics. And so I ended up having to try to advance up the right flank and failed. Let's see, did I fail that charge? I think I failed. He was able to debuff me really well. Nagash had Morbid Conjuration, and he was throwing out a ton of spells, and Shackles was just absolutely destroying the Kroxagore. He kept reducing their movement by 2 or 3 from the Shackles, and made it really hard to get my Kroxagore where I needed to go. And then these horses were just able to wear down my flanks, and then eventually he was able to crush in and kill the rest of my army. I didn't kill a single unit in his army. And even if I had, he would have brought it right back from Nagash. But just overwhelming force with that cavalry. Lots of buffs on them. They hit well. And I was utterly dominated there. I failed a couple battle tactics just from some odd stuff. We had like a control battle over here on this objective. With his hero was making me minuses to control. My Carnosaur was making him minus to control, and he ended up winning that objective by 1 model. And then I think maybe it was a failed battle tactic over here on the right side, or failed charge over here on the right side, and I failed 2 battle tactics in a row and just kind of spiraled out of control there. So lost that one for sure against a good player and a good army. Game 2, another one with a whole bunch of objectives. This one I'm playing against Kit and his Soulblight. He's way higher drops than me, so I made him go first. And he basically just brings things up and is just going to pin me into my own territory. And it works really well. This is where, like, if I had had my hunters, this would have been a whole different game. If I would have had more board control, I could have played around this, but he basically crushes down into my lines and just able to bunker me in. I have to fight out of here, and it takes me a lot longer than I really thought it would to get out of this. These zombies, just for some reason, they got into all these Raptidons, and the Raptidons just could not kill those zombies. It was insane. What if you don't get on the charge with the Raptidons, they are just not going to do much damage. There are a lot of wounds, and they really do help buff up these Kroxigor here. But if they're not charging, they're not doing much damage. Anyway, he got some Graveguard up from the grave, and they came in and ended up killing off my Carnosaur and just had me pinned down. It was a really close game. I think at the end of 3, I was down by 2 points maybe, and we had to call it there on time. It would have been really close towards the end, but I was more than happy just to shake on it and not have to worry about trying to figure out who would win it at the end of the game. Really close, and his strategy of just bunkering me into my own territory worked really well. Couldn't quite dig out. Game 3, another weird deployment one where we're kind of at an odd angle here. And I do have some Aggradons over here on this left side just to try to score some battle tactics. And then my Carnosaur and some more Aggradons are over here on the right to push up the flank this side to score. Take the flanks or take their lands. This game ended up being really just a fight here in the middle of the board. Because the territory was kind of at a weird, I think territory went like this. I was trying to stay in my territory here and fight and keep the fight in my territory. So I'd have my -1 to rend. But really, he pushed all his brutes and his brute ragers this way, and it was just a fight in the middle between the Kroxigor. And I got my Raptidon stuck in just to give my buffs to these Kroxigor here. And Kroxigor ended up winning out. Now, I mean, we kind of just obliterated each other. I ended up tabling him by probably the bottom of 3. But this unit of Kroxigor had, I think, maybe 2 or 3 Kroxigor left. This one only had 2 left. I think the big deciding factor was his Maw Crusher had to come over here to take on these Aggradons and got stuck in. Man, the Maw Crusher just does not... It's not the Maw Crusher of the previous edition. It is not as good as it once was, that's for sure. It got stuck into those Aggradons, and I was able to do the Sunclaw, pile in Immortal Wounds to it a couple times, and then hit it with some Mortal Wounds from the terrain piece. Finally, it ended up over here in my territory, putting some pressure on this objective, and the Carnosaur made a nice long charge and was able to kill it. I was surprised. Like a Carnosaur killing a Maw Crusher? When would that ever happen? Maybe I rolled hot or something. The Carnosaur generally is not going to do that much damage. I think he only had like 7 or 8 wounds left anyway on the Maw Crusher, but was able to kill that off and put the game away. But it was really just a melee fest there in the middle, and the Kroxigor ended up being better than the brutes for Ironjawz. I think Ironjawz is in a little bit of a rough place right now. They have good saves, but they're very slow, and their melee damage I don't think their melee is up to par with some of the other big heavy hitters in melee. So, yeah. So, good game there with Couch, playing against Couch and his Ironjawz. So, went 1 and 2 on the weekend. I think I definitely could have probably done a little bit better if I had taken my list I've been practicing with instead of changing it right at the last minute. But still, heck of a lot of fun. Kroxigor are just amazing. I love Kroxigor, but they definitely do need some screens out in front of them so you can make sure and pick your battles where you need to. So going back to my board control list so I can play them a little bit more effectively and do better. All right, guys. That's it for today. Not a whole lot of changes in the FAQ errata, so all right. It is what it is. Keep plugging out there. Let me know how y'all do, and we'll do some more list reviews here probably next week as this month wraps up. There's been some good Seraphon lists out there. So, all right, guys. Catch you next time.